So a few years ago I made a couple of videos about rudder pedals. One of those was about what use it is really to have rudder pedals in our flight sims. The other was a comparison of three different sets of pedals you could buy out there, more or less representative of low-end, mid-range and high-end. And those were the Cytec ProFlight pedals, representing the low end. At the high end I had a set of pedals from Flightlink, and the mid-range was the MFG Crosswind pedals, which are these ones, and I have been using them to this day. If you don't know about these pedals, these are absolutely fantastic, amazingly well engineered pedals, still available now. This is version 2, serial number 1211. Version 3 is the currently available version. They're essentially the same. I think there's a combat version as well, which I'm not sure if it's actually physically different in construction. It's hard to see how it could be any better. Maybe a bit different in the look. You can get them in dark graphite colour as well. The originals were all this colour. If that matters to you. This is just such an amazing piece of engineering. It's completely adjustable. You can see it's the basic parallelogram design, which is quite familiar from a number of other rudder systems. We've got toe brakes, of course. We've got adjustment for the toe brake angle. We've got the foot, I don't know what you call this, toe in out adjustment. We've got tension adjustment for the independently for the toe brakes. We've got multiple ways to adjust the tension of the basic rudder action. The tension is basically controlled by this spring here. We've got a wind in and out adjuster. I'm not sure if you're seeing this. At the front we've got a 2-position anchor point for the spring at the rear. So again, a lot of adjustment there. We've got now the action of this is controlled by, uniquely in my experience, by a mechanical cam, which is this little thing here resting against this I don't know what you call that thing. And we can swap the cams in and out to give you a different feel. So you know, the degree of notchiness in the centre, the actual, you know, it's a very carefully engineered curve there. And I have another cam here. This is the optional. It comes with 2 cams which are just numbered, cam 6 and cam 4. I've got cam 4 installed, which is the general purpose GA cam. I did purchase, when I bought these, the optional cam 5, although I've never used it. Cam 5 is supposed to be more realistic for general aviation aircraft, but it's different, you know, the feel is different out towards the extremes. So anyway, that's what the cams are for. You can adjust the distance from the wall, because when you push on these, depending on how you've got them adjusted, they want to slide away from you. So we've got wall spaces there. Can't think of any other adjustments. There probably are some. but why are we making this video? Well, in contrast to this very well engineered and very effective and very good value for money piece of equipment, my high-end option, which the Flightlink pedals, scores over this in one important and actually really quite significant respect, and that is the pedals are hydraulically damped. We have the spring action. You can probably see the springs on here. That's the return action. But inside of here we have 2 hydraulic cylinders, pistons if you like, which resist the pedal travel. And what that means is, well, I mean, in a nutshell, you feel resistance to pushing the pedals as if there's inertia. Like for example, if you're flying something very big like a DC-3 or a B-17, I don't think those aircraft have got power assistance in the rudder controls, other than the lever arms and so on. You know, you're going to feel it's going to be very hard to move that rudder quickly. And so what you're going to find is you can't move these things quickly, whereas with the MFGs, you know, you can cycle them very rapidly, and it's kind of unrealistic. So that's the one downside, or the one upside indeed of these pedals over the MFGs. Now you might ask why I haven't been using these pedals. Well, these are actually helicopter anti-torque pedals, and I mean the downside of that is there's no toe brakes. These are perfectly adequate as a set of rudder pedals if you're flying like a glider or a, well, it'd be great for a glider actually, or a vintage aircraft without brakes. The other thing is these, I got these second hand, and there is a very, very slow leak in at least one of the pistons, and so it does tend to leak some oil. So that's the one regret from the MFGs, but I have stuck with them over the years. But recently a number of people have decided to try an aftermarket sort of modification of these pedals to add a damper, and it's been so successful and so popular that Milan, not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, has decided to make an official upgrade, and indeed you can now buy a retrofit kit. The version 3 pedals come with, they have mounting holes at least for the retrofit kit already installed, and so that kit, I don't think you can buy the pedals with, it's an add-on. I mean, presumably you can buy the kit with the pedals new. So the older pedals such as these, the version 2 and the version 1, are also well catered for. The kit is slightly different and the installation is a little bit more involved, but cut a long story short, I have the kit here and I'm going to install it today and check it out. As with everything about this piece of equipment, the damper kit seems just extremely high quality, almost cheap. You know, it's well, I'll say something about that. It's £34 I paid for this, which is very, I mean, that's nothing. You know, I mean, the pedals were like 300, well, I can't remember now, it's 5 years ago, but €300 I think they were. So £34 is nothing. The problem with that is they come from, I don't know where Milan is, Croatia or somewhere out that way, and he dispatches them by DHL airmail, and it costs you £19. There's no option there. So, but you know, in mitigation they did come within, I think, 3 days. So, you know, that's the world of 2021. You want something, it's on the other side of the world, you snap your fingers and it's here before the weekend. But what you get for that is you get this apparently very well engineered damper. I don't know how the damper works. I mean, I don't know if it's hydraulic. Can it be hydraulic? But there it is, and it's got these two little, I don't know what you call these. They're sort of swivelable mounting points at either end, which need to be anchored onto the mechanism. We've got I think it's something like a 24-step adjustment to the damping action, so we'll get to that in the end. This being the version 2 pedals, I think the only difference is we've got a mount, an adapter plate towards the well, front or rear, depending on how you look at it, of the pedals, which adds I mean, essentially we're adding this one hole, which is where the damper is going to mount to. So, and we add that just by removing these two screws that hold the cam in place, and then bolting this on with the well, I think we get 2 replacement screws because they need to be longer. And then at the front we anchor the damper, so that's got an offset hole which is over here somewhere, and then at the front we anchor the damper, if I turn that upside down, through the main axle. Again, I think we need a longer screw, we need to dismantle this to install that. So that should be very straightforward. We'll do that and we'll be back. So here we are with the damper mod fitted, and immediately obvious that there's a huge difference in the feel there. Got a beautifully smooth action there with
quite a lot of resistance. I've got the damper set probably just about in the middle of the range. If I put it to minimum, let's see, minimum, we've pretty much got, you know, the original action, maybe a little bit of damping evident there. So we've got 23, 24 positions there. Huge range of adjustment. See, that feels very heavy, and you can see I can't move that quickly. So that feels great. I'm going to put maximum. Now maximum, that's just ridiculous. That's far too much damping. You can barely move the pedals. You know, that's maybe if you're flying the Spruce Goose or something like that, that's how it would feel, but that's way too much damping. But definitely a lot of adjustment potential there, you know, which is going to make a difference if you want to emulate a specific aircraft. That just feels beautiful. I just take my feet off and let it go. It's returning to centre, but it's returning slowly. So there it is, the MFG Crosswind pedals with the damper mod fitted. Easy enough to fit and makes an amazing difference. This is right up there now with the Flightlink pedals for feel. I have plugged this into the sim, given it a try. Makes such a difference, and massive amount of adjustment in the damping action. I've got it set somewhere, I suppose, just upstream of the central position, but you know, obviously you can adjust that depending on what aircraft you want to fly. Now, a couple of things to say. This is the second time I've uploaded this video. First time, my first impressions were that there was some asymmetry in the action, quite significant asymmetry. That led in two different directions actually. I was contacted by the designer of this mod, who is indeed the owner of the website Replica Gear. So he created this mod, and he's I guess sold the rights to distribute it to Milan, who makes the MFG Crosswind pedals. Interestingly enough, if you go and look at the Replica Flight Gear site, you will also see the original Combat version of the pedals. Now the Combat version has the damper mod, but it also has different footbeds for the pedals, and it has, well, I'm not sure if you can still buy this, because you know, when I went back to the site, it everything looked different, but at some point there was an option to have damping on the brake action as well. But getting back to the plot, the designer of this mod emailed me and first of all said I had the damper mounted incorrectly. Now Milan shows in his video the damper mounted asymmetrically, so it's off to one side. But you can change that orientation by undoing this little clamp here, flipping it over, and then the damper mounts centrally. It's not quite central, it's still a couple of degrees off. That's not imprecision, that's just, you know, a compromise in the design and the engineering of this. Now then, something we discovered, well I say we discovered, you know, I moaned about it, and the the engineering person discovered that there is a difference, and there is indeed an asymmetry in the pedal action if the damper is mounted in the asymmetric position. And there's something like a 10 to 15% difference in the resistance. Now this is the, I suppose, the drag in moving the pedals. This is not to be confused with the spring force that gives you the ultimate tension on the pedals. So that's something that, you know, it is important that you mount the damper in the central orientation if you want a perfectly uniform action. Now the reason we got into a conversation about that in the first place was my initial observations were that there was a gross asymmetry in the pedal action. Now at the end of the day, what I was noticing in my initial first impressions was simply that my damper wasn't working properly, and so Milan sent me another one. This is the old one, and I fitted the new one and it works perfectly, so absolutely great. I mean, maybe it's worth saying that although this looks very nice and beautiful, this is fairly cheap mass-produced damper, probably of Chinese origin, which is good and bad. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, Milan tells me that they've had, you know, they've sold hundreds and hundreds of these, and there's only been one other possible, not even verified, but one other possible report of a faulty one. But they cost about £30. You can get them on eBay or Amazon, but you're better off buying the kit, because the kit, as I say, it has all the fittings, it has the bracket. Brilliant mods, right up there now with the Flightlink pedals. Interestingly enough, when I first got the Flightlink pedals, you may recall I mentioned that they were weeping oil, and I did contact Flightlink to ask if I could do anything about that. They offered to refurbish the pedals for a cost of $175, which may have been worth the money, but they also wanted $82 to ship, not even the pedals, just the cylinders. So, you know, we're looking at a refurbishment of those pedals for pretty much the cost of the MFGs, and they rather snootily said to me, oh, because I mentioned, you know, that comparison, hoping that they would reduce their price, and they rather snootily said, you know, the MFG pedals look nice, but, you know, they didn't have the oil damping and so on. Well, now they do, Flightlink, so I'm kind of glad I went with this solution after all. Definitely recommended mod. If you're going to buy these pedals, buy the damper mod, no questions asked. So there you go, we're going to put these back in the sim, give them a good workout.